Welcome to the official Business and Lifestyle Legends podcast. Real life stories, exciting interviews, and a lot of knowledge to change your life. And here is your host of today's episode, Ben Schneider.
Welcome, guys, to the Business and Lifestyle Legends podcast. Glad to have you here. My name is Ben Schneider. I'm the host of this episode today. And today my guest is Rand Fishkin from the United States. Welcome, Rand. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, great to be here, Ben. Thanks for having me.
So, to give you a little overview, Rand is an entrepreneur from the United States. He is the owner of SparkToro, a market research tool, which is very exciting. We will get back to this later. So he's also, like me, in the software as a service business. And we want to talk about that today to give you some insights on how to build a software as a service business, because it's quite different from doing a coaching business or an e-commerce store or something like that. So it's much more complex, I think. So Rand, how did it came that you were creating that software and starting that business? What have you done before, or which was the steps that leads you to this business?
Yeah. So I think a lot of folks probably know me from my previous company, the one I started back in 2001, called Moz, which is a fairly large software company, also based here in Seattle. And I started that business when I was very young, initially as a consulting business, and then it transformed into a software as a service business in the very early days of software as a service. The acronym SaaS wasn't even popular at the time. And we raised some venture capital for that business, grew it fairly substantially. I think Moz today is around a $50 million US business. And that I left that company a couple years ago and started SparkToro. And I knew at that point I wanted to use the knowledge that I gained at Moz, building a software as a service company, to create another one. I'm sure you've had this experience, Ben, right? The first time you play a video game, you're terrible at it. You're like, oh no, I missed the jump, and you fall in the pit and you die. And then the second time you play it, you're a little bit better. And the third time you play it, you get even better than that. And I think that's true also in the business world. If you start something the first time, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, no matter how much you've studied it and how much you've practiced and all those kinds of things. But if you can expose yourself to the situation a few times and build up some of that knowledge, I think you can apply it, and that's exactly what I did with SparkToro. So SparkToro is just two people. It's just myself and my co-founder, Casey. We do have a number of subcontractors that we use for all sorts of things, but we basically design and build and market all of the product ourselves, and that's an intentional move. And we're very different from Moz in that we're not venture backed. So we've chosen to raise money in an alternative way and build the company in a different way too.
Oh wow, that's awesome! Only two people. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's get back to this.
We like to keep our expenses very low.
Yeah, that's a good move. Let's get back to this in a second. You mentioned something really exciting. So you mentioned you were creating a consulting business first, and then out of that knowledge and out of maybe with that customers, you created that as a software as a service business. So this is something really exciting to me, because I think I've made that mistake on Shopify, that I've done it the other way around. So I've not done the consulting on how can you hire a Filipino or something like that first. I've created a platform first. And I think it would have been better. So for you guys, interesting fact right now, I think it would have been better to create a consulting first and get money out of that consulting business, get clients, and then building the platform out of that knowledge. So that would have given me a cash flow from that consulting business, because I didn't know how incredibly expensive it could be to create a software as a service business. So I realized that a few months later, and then there was a point of no return. But definitely what you mentioned is really, really important. So if there is a possibility, please guys, do the consulting business first and then create the software for this. Would you agree with that?
Let's see. I have seen it go both ways. I would definitely say I think that you're right on the, if you are personally funding your business rather than you have outside sources of funding, I agree that starting with services and moving to product is a better way to go. You can use the services in two ways, right? You can use it not only to help fund the business and get some cash flow and revenue, but also to learn what your customers' problems really are and to figure out where and how the software can plug in well. So I like that model a lot. I have seen software businesses, I think probably the most famous of which and well known is Salesforce, and followed closely by HubSpot, which are both big publicly traded software businesses. And both of them started exclusively software and then added on services and consulting and sort of, reps who would help you with your software and all those kinds of things later. And both did very well with that. Even somebody like SurveyMonkey, right, which was like software exclusively, now has a lot of services on top of it that can help you. So I think it can work both ways, but I agree if you're self-funded, you should start with services, move to product later.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you have raised venture capital with the first business you've started, and now you have created another business without venture capital. So I have never raised any venture capital. It's every time out of my pocket. How is the difference? So if you're raising a lot of money, so I think you have great opportunities to do with that money. You can hire stuff, you can put out a lot of money in marketing. For example, if you have $1 million to spend on marketing and to spend on ads, it's incredible. Instead, if you only have 10 or 20,000. So it maximizes the chances to win, let's say it like this. But how is your experience with that? Is it the startup dream with, I don't know, having an office and fancy PlayStation and all that kind of bullshit nobody needs? Or how is it if you're raising that much money?
Yeah, there's definitely some of the fancy bullshit, right? There's no doubt about it. I think one of the biggest challenges for a lot of software companies, especially in particular tech hubs in the United States, where engineering talent is in high demand and low supply, which is definitely true here in my hometown of Seattle, which is where I started both these companies. It's absolutely the case that during, from 2008 to 2015 or 16 at least, every engineering role we were competing against Amazon, against Google, against Microsoft, against Facebook, and 10 other startups that were just as impressive or more so than Moz. And so that was a huge challenge, and we felt the pressure and the need to be to have the fancy bullshit and the nice office space and the prestige and the PR coverage and to win awards for culture and best places to work and all those kinds of things. And I think that absolutely was critical to the way we structured our model. The interesting part, Ben, is you don't have to structure a model that way. There's no real reason that you have to be localized, right? There was no reason we had to build our workforce in Seattle as opposed to globally. the Philippines is a great place to hire engineers, right? We could have absolutely hired probably better engineers than we got in Seattle for much lower cost and provided, more robust infrastructure and probably built more loyalty into our team. All sorts of things, right? So you are not constrained by these types of things. We probably could have set up an engineering office in Germany and done better, right?
We should talk about that, man.
Yeah, I know some German engineers. They are excellent, absolutely spectacular at their jobs. And I think that because we were venture backed, we felt that we had to follow sort of the same path, right? The same path that other venture backed companies in the United States had built over the prior decade or two. And it was that lack of imagination and creativity that really held us back from exploring things like, going remote, hiring more broadly, using more contractors and agencies. To be honest, if I had Moz to do over again, I would have done almost all of our marketing outsourced to agencies and very little in-house. So
Okay.
we're doing these similar things with SparkToro, right? We're doing a lot of, everything from data collection to finances to operations. All of that is being managed by agencies and subcontractors.
Okay, that's an interesting fact. Why? Why would you like to outsource that stuff and not getting someone who is creating your Facebook ads in-house?
Yeah, because frankly, when you work at an agency, you see hundreds, thousands, millions of campaigns, right? Campaigns and projects and different clients and all these kinds of things. And so the agencies, especially small to medium-sized agencies, are very early adopters of best practices, new technology, new tools, innovation, and they have to work really hard every month to keep their clients happy, right? Otherwise, the client leaves and goes to some other agency or hires in-house. Meanwhile, if you hire someone full-time, and they don't do well for a few months, you sort of put them on a performance improvement plan and you work to try and see if you can get them better. And then when they're performing like, okay, you're happy again. And if performance struggles, you still keep them on. It's not the same sort of performance-based transaction. And the cost of hiring someone in-house, especially in the United States, I'm not sure how true this is in the EU, but in the United States, because of healthcare costs in particular, if you have a marketer who's, maybe making $90,000 or $100,000 a year, you're going to pay another $40,000 or $50,000 for healthcare and insurance.
Same in Germany.
On top of that, right? So you could take that $150,000 a year and put $10K a month into an agency, which will get you a great agency to manage that stuff. It is a variable cost that you can remove at any time you need to. It is, that you're getting the best service out there, because if you're not, you can change agencies rapidly, right? So, this agency's not working for me anymore. I guess we're going to a new one. That's not a big deal, right? We've got the budget for it. Hiring someone new can take 90 days, 100 days, could take a year to onboard someone new and have them performing well. There's just a million reasons why my preference is to use agencies for almost everything I can.
That's interesting and definitely correct. We're 100% on the same page. Definitely, guys, listen to this man. While talking with him, I feel that he is very experienced. He knows what he's talking about. It's like that.
I've done it wrong.
No.
I did it wrong for a long time.
Yeah, but Rand, it's the experience that is speaking out of your mouth. So it's funny that you're mentioning this, because I've created by myself I'm doing some Facebook ads for people, and I've created 10 million euros this year for a company, and this company stopped the contract by the end of the year with me because they want to do it in-house. And this is something really dangerous, I think, for this company, because they think, hey, Ben is easy setting up Facebook campaigns and doing the captions and all that stuff. We can do that by ourselves for less money. And I don't think so. So exactly what you mentioned.
Yeah, it seems unlikely to me. I think that a lot of times when a company brings things in-house, it's because there's an executive leadership mindset of it needs to be built here and we need to own the intellectual property and the practice around it rather than outsourcing it because they feel like outsourcing is somehow a risk to the business, right? A variable risk. And I think exactly the opposite way, right? I think that unfortunately, executives are trained to believe that it's risky to have things off premises or out of their hands. And in fact, I think the opposite is true. You know, maybe in an era when there were only a few dozen or a few hundred good agencies, but there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of great service providers around the world nowadays. It is not the challenge that it once was to find someone who's great at Facebook marketing or advertising. And if you're great at Facebook advertising, why would you ever stay in-house?
Yeah.
Right? If let's say you or I were a phenomenal, retargeting ad buyer, or we're amazing at Instagram posting, or we're incredible at building a following on Twitter, or we're remarkable at LinkedIn B2B, whatever it is. Why would we keep our skill exclusively to one company that pays us a fixed amount and maybe we get a raise, as opposed to going out to the market and attracting people with our talent? And so you're almost always going to find that the best talent is out there selling that talent as a service.
Definitely.
That's my experience.
Definitely, 100% agree. So some interesting facts until right now. If you want to follow Rand, go on Twitter. This is one of his main channels, and follow him. Just type Rand Fishkin, and you will find that one. He is the one with a blue sign on Twitter.
At Rand Fish.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get back to the SaaS business. You were funding that second company only with 2 people. How have you done all the creation process, the development process? So we on Shopify, we have around 16 people. So I could not imagine that with doing only 2 people, because we have people like social media marketer, videograph, designer, team of developers, writers, VAs, all that kind of stuff. How are you doing that all by yourself? So for sure, for marketing, you could have agencies, but for videos or social media marketing or something like that, is that all outsourced, or are you not posting on Facebook or Instagram every day, or how have you created that
I would say
company?
we're definitely, so as SparkToro, we don't do much social media posting directly. A lot of the social media marketing, I would say, comes through me, right? It's through my channels, and I've built up sizable audiences in the marketing space. So, having a tool like SparkToro and then sort of sharing it on my channels is actually quite useful, works pretty darn well. We have alerts set up so that when people talk about SparkToro, we can see it, and we go in and manage that. But yeah, we manage the customer service ourselves. We built the product, entirely ourselves. I'm doing most of the product design, and then Casey is doing all of the engineering. We have we've outsourced some of our data acquisition to third parties. So some sources out there that do some crawling or collection for us. We've used some sort of hourly contractors to do some manual data scrubbing for us, those kinds of things. But generally speaking, Ben, the biggest answer to how do you do it as just 2 people is patience, right? So I think whereas in a venture-backed setting, I always felt this incredible pressure to be growing as fast as possible, right? Like, we have to launch things quickly, we have to get out to market, we have to beat the competition, those kinds of things. With SparkToro, we've had a very patient approach. We raised funding in, what was that, June of 2018. So I guess it'll be almost 3 years now, in 6 months. And we launched our product in April of 2020 of this past year. So it was, a year and a half of development before we launched, which is
Same with us. 1.5 years.
yeah, it's not super fast, right? It's essentially like, okay, well, we're gonna take it slow and steady. We're gonna launch I would say Casey is very fast at building things, and because he's built tools and products like this before, specifically at Moz. Moz is in the SEO space, so search engine optimization software, which is different, but it's still a research tool product, right? Aggregate data from the web, make it available via search. Because he'd done it before, he was fast at it, right? And that meant that we could, build a reasonably sustainable system in about 12 months. We tested it with a large group of beta testers. We actually hired an agency to help us run the beta process and the data analysis and figure out what to fix. We hired an outsourced designer just using Dribbble. We found someone on Dribbble who had a great portfolio. We reached out to them. He was available. I actually reached out to 4 or 5 people. One of them came back to us with sort of a good match. We paid that person a good amount of money, but still quite reasonable, and he did terrific work. He was a designer out of Australia. And then we basically redesigned the product in a few months, launched it in 2020, and had surprising amounts of success, I think, especially considering the pandemic this year.
Okay. Could you lead us a little bit through your numbers if you want to? You don't have to, but
Sure.
if you want to. How much did SparkToro cost until you launched it?
Yeah, good question. I think, let's see. So we raised 1.3 million. It was a private investment round, sort of an unusual structure. If folks are interested, we open sourced our funding documents so that other startups could use them. And you can, if you Google SparkToro funding, you'll find those. That money lasted basically. We spent about $850,000 of those dollars between funding round and launch. So I'm glad we raised as much as we did because it gave us a nice sort of $500,000 buffer. And most of that money was our salaries and our healthcare, and then some technology costs, right? Like our AWS cloud and crawling and bandwidth, bandwidth for our data collection, those kinds of things. We did get some AWS credits, startup credits, which helped us. And then starting in April, we were still burning cash until, was that September? I think September we turned the corner to profitable, break even. So now we're, a little above the break even point, putting a little bit of cash in the bank again, and expect to have a profitable 2021. Okay,
what does it mean to be profitable in per month? So
yeah.
How much are the expenses per month, and how much did you earn per month?
So let's see, I think all in our costs are a little bit variable depending on, how much we're using agency and contract work and data gathering and all that, but somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000 a month. And we're making, a little bit more than that, maybe some month. It continues to grow, but the line starting in September was right around 39,000, 40,000, and it's been growing. I think maybe this month it'll be 43, 44, something like that. Okay. So, it's just barely above the break-even point.
Okay, and did you face some difficulties, some unexpected stuff when you were launching that business? Were people screaming like, hell yeah, I've waited for this, where can I register, where can I get you my money? Or nobody was caring about, just you, because of your personal brand, got the people in, or how is your experience on that?
It was a little bit of a combination of personal and the product. I think let's see, one of the really smart things that we did that I would encourage every entrepreneur to do is before our product came out, before we launched it, in fact, before we even got funded in 2018, we launched the website and had the primary call to action as, sign up to get notified when SparkToro launches. So we had a little, sort of a pitch of like, here's the problem that SparkToro is solving, and here's, an email, fill out this, put your email in here, and then confirm an email that comes to you to get on the mailing list. And we'll basically send invitations in the order that they come in. So, Ben, if you had registered, whatever, in May of 2018, you would have been one of the first people to get an invite in, whatever, the end of February or March of this year. So that definitely helped build up a lot of our marketing launch for this year. I think we had about 18,000 people on that registration list when we launched in April. So that really helped us to get our first couple hundred customers from that email list. And over the course of the last 2 years, while Casey was building the product, right, I was doing a lot of marketing. So, speaking at a lot of conferences and events, doing a lot of stuff like this, right? Webinars, and videos, and podcasts, and all those kinds of things. Did a reasonably substantial amount of blogging and social media marketing, right? Sort of just content creation, content marketing, and helped to grow that audience. And then over the last 9 months, most of our marketing traction has come from really two sources. It is what I'd call digital PR, essentially finding other people who have platforms that reach marketers and technologists and brands that are interested in sort of very fast market research like SparkToro does, and getting on those platforms, right? So I'll find someone who's got a YouTube channel that reaches a lot of marketers, and whatever, I'll start tweeting with them, we'll send an email, I'll send them a message on LinkedIn, and we'll form a connection, and I'll be on their show. Right?
Did you pay to be there sometimes?
No, never.
No. Okay.
No. Conceivably, you can, right? You can pay some of those places to get in there. And I've had a few where I've exchanged a message with someone, and then they've been like, well, if you want to be on this show, whatever, it costs money. I always say no to those. Maybe at some point I'll give them a try. But that's been tactic number one. And then tactic number two, like I said, is really sort of a content marketing plus social. So we haven't done any paid advertising yet. And that's mostly because we're watching lifetime value of our subscribers, and we want to know what that number roughly comes out to before we start making investments to be sure that those are profitable.
That's good. So we definitely should talk about Facebook ads, man. I'm curious about that because for me as a marketer, this is one of the first things I would start running any other business, no matter what, to place ads on Google or Facebook or YouTube, because this is the easiest way to drive traffic on the website. This is maybe not the best way to be profitable in the first step or anything like that, but this gives me at a very high speed some knowledge and data. So this is why I would recommend, if you have some money, and definitely if you have raised more than $1 million, you have money, I would try that as one of the first steps.
Yeah, Casey and I talked about it a good bit. I think that we, in November specifically, I was sort of looking at we use Profitwell, which is a software as a service product that lets you see a lot of data about your subscribers. I highly recommend it. Anyone who's in SaaS, you should go get Profitwell. It's free software, which is unbelievable to me. They could charge, honestly, like probably $2,000 a year, and I'd pay for it, no problem. But it is it's quite outstanding, and it shows you data about your monthly revenue and number of subscribers and how many of them are active and all those kinds of things. And so I was looking at those numbers, and they were trending nicely. And so yeah, Casey and I had a long conversation about like, hey, should we experiment with some advertising, and if so, when? And Casey and I have both done a considerable amount of advertising in the past. Obviously, Moz had I don't know, probably Moz was spending $5 or $6 million a year on paid ads across various platforms for its software. And Casey was at HubSpot and Wistia and Ookla, which were spending, HubSpot's probably spending $100 million, right, on paid ads across the web. And yeah, our perspective was basically we are not yet in a position to do that. Most of the problem right now, not problem, but most of our challenge right now is that we have a freemium model, right? So if you go to SparkToro, you can sign up for a free account. You can run a bunch of searches for free every month. And the vast majority, I think something 35,000 or so folks have free accounts. That works great, right? That model works very well in a free acquisition system. With a paid funnel, it doesn't do as well. So basically, if we were to get, let's say 100 people signing up for a spend of, I don't know, a low spend, like $2,000 to get 100 signups. We only convert maybe 1 out of every 150 or so people. And so that's our sort of challenge. We need basically our free subscribers have to come from free channels to be profitable, because we're not converting very many of them. Maybe our ads could be targeted to a better audience, right? To a more subscription likely group. And maybe over time we'll find that, over a 2 or 3 year horizon, many more people who've signed up for a free version will eventually sign up for a paid. But we've got to basically watch those numbers. And certainly it's the case too that the pandemic throws everything into question, right? So you have this economic picture where tons of people are trying to save money on marketing, and where, there's a lot of folks entering e-commerce and web marketing spaces. And so the advertising inventory is quite crowded, which has meant costs are relatively high. So, yeah.
Have you ever tried, or maybe you're in a too early stage and you didn't want to do that, but have you ever tried to get some bucks out of the pocket from your free members? For example, like sending a newsletter, hey, try the, let me check, try the starter plan for only $9 the next 30 days, something like that, because a little percentage will stick to it, and some percent of them will use that offer. So you have these $9 out of, just for example, you have these $9 out of them. So $9 per, I don't know, 10,000 users is a lot of money. And a little percentage will stick to the plan. It's like an upsell offer. Have you tried something like that?
Yeah. So at Moz, we did a number of those types of promotions. The most well known of which was like our $1 try Moz for $1. Back in, what was that, 2009 or 10, and we had, I would say from a cash perspective, you're right, awesome, like incredible. Made us literally, I think, $1.5 million, $2 million just that year. But that being said, with the hindsight that comes from watching that over the years, basically the two things that we really didn't like about it. One was the high churn rate that comes out of that group. So you get a lot of people who basically try the product, buy the paid version, and then they either don't really use it, or they try it but they don't have a problem they're trying to solve with it. And so their perception of your product goes down, right? They basically come away from it months and years later being like, yeah, I tried Moz once. It wasn't great. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I needed, right? They were promotionally inspired to try it, and then they quit. And then the other thing is, of course, your churn curve starts to look really, really terrible, which doesn't matter as much as SparkToro. At Moz, it mattered a lot because it meant that future investors looked at our churn and said, what is this? Like every this day of the month, you have all these people leaving and your churn rate is terrible, blah, 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 blah. And it was tough to explain that away as like, oh, that's because we did this promotion and that kind of thing. So less concerning at SparkToro. We have done, I think we've done 2 email promotions this year. One was at launch, and the second was in September when we started offering a new price point. And that September one was very successful, right? I think it was very successful because instead of saying, hey, we're offering you, sort of the same thing everybody else gets, but for a lower price, we basically ran an experiment where we offered a lower price version of our subscription. That $150 a month had been the default. We started in September testing a $50 a month price point, so a much lower price point per month, with a much lower usage, but and some features missing. But essentially testing that, we found that there were a lot of people who basically subscribed to that version, and some people who checked it out and then said, no, I want these other features. And so the $150 subscription started doing well as well. So that was a very good promotion for us. And once that test had proved successful, we actually launched the $50 a month subscription option publicly on the site. So
Okay.
we made that, the email list is a great way to test a new price point, a new feature, those kinds of things, see if it works well, and then roll it out for the full audience if it does.
Yeah, that's great that you answered that. That would have been another question for me if you have split tested your prices. But yeah, definitely you have done it. Yeah, awesome. And every SaaS business has monthly and yearly billing, so yearly plans and monthly plans. How is the percentage at your company? Are most of the people using the monthly, or are 50% using the yearly plan?
I think it's almost exactly 70-30. So 70% monthly, 30% annual.
Oh, okay,
And
that's a
yeah,
lot
that
for
number
annual.
is, yeah, I think that is fairly common. We asked the folks behind ProfitWell, Price Intelligently Group, asked them about like their broad data set that they'd seen across a lot of companies, and I think the average is right around there, somewhere around 75-25 or 70-30. So we're right about average.
Okay, great. So we are a little bit over time, but it's an exciting talk today. Let us know a little bit about SparkToro. If I want to use your tool, what can it do for me? How can it help me?
Oh, sure, yeah. This is a great question. I probably should have answered that at some point earlier.
Maybe I should have asked these questions at the beginning of the podcast.
What is this thing that we're talking about? So SparkToro, yeah, we call it a market research or an audience research tool. The basic customer is a marketer or a market researcher or a product builder, someone who's trying to better understand the audience that they want to reach. So if you're building a new product for architects in Canada, or you want to, you've got a new product for chemical engineers in the UK, or people who are interested in hiking and climbing in the Southwest of the United States, or you're launching an e-commerce brand.
Yeah, let's do it on a real example. I've Shopify, a platform for entrepreneurs to hire someone from all over the world. So basically, for example, from the Philippines.
Right. Yeah, exactly, right. So you've got this product, and you know the market that you want to reach, which is essentially global entrepreneurs who have probably they probably describe themselves as founder or co-founder or being in the startup world or the tech world or those kinds of things, right? And so you might say, I know that a lot of my customers, I don't know, follow Elon Musk, like we were talking about him earlier. Or I know lots of my customers use the title in their bio or their profile on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. I know that they use the word co-founder, or I know that they use the word CEO. So I'm going to go to SparkToro and say, my audience uses these words in their bio, co-founder, startup. And now SparkToro will search across about 100 million, maybe 80 million public social and web profiles. They're, I apologize, mostly English language at this point. Our top two languages to get on board for next year are Spanish and German, so stay tuned for that. But we'll return to you and say, okay, we found 1,675 profiles that contain the word co-founder and startup, and here's their behavior. They follow accounts like these. They share and visit websites like these. They watch and listen to podcasts and YouTube channels like these. They use these other words in their bio. They use these hashtags. They're located in these regions. So now you can go do smart marketing, paid, organic, outreach, digital PR campaigns of all kinds with much more intelligence behind your work, right? So if you're an agency, about half of our customers are agencies, you can go to your client and say, hey, rather than spending 50 grand on the New York Times, we should be spending 5 grand on each of these 10 publications that reach exactly our target market. We should be pitching these podcasts. We should be pitching these YouTube channels. We should be using these hashtags. We should be advertising against these behaviors. We should be advertising to an audience that follows these people on Instagram because look, that's exactly who our groups are. And Facebook ads, obviously, has taken away a ton of that cool data over the last few years, especially after Cambridge Analytica. A lot of digital ad professionals are using SparkToro to try and get back that intelligence of like, hey, I want to reach this audience. Tell me about what they do online so I can go do better targeting.
Sounds awesome, man. Sounds awesome. I will definitely give it a try.
It's totally free to try. I think a lot of people have fun just playing with the free version and like learning more about their own audience, right? So you plug in whatever the Twitter handle for Shopify and you see all this data about like, oh, well, here's what people who follow your brand do and say and talk about and visit and how they behave online. And all of our data comes from anonymized, aggregated public social and web profiles. So we are, we're not showing data like, oh, well, here's Ben and here's Rand. That's, you don't see anything about the audience. You just see aggregated data about 17% of people who match this profile criteria have these behaviors.
Okay. Sounds incredible, and definitely, guys, you should always be open-minded to software products because they can make your life easier. They can help you growing your revenue. They can help doing better marketing or having an overview about profits you mentioned before. So definitely, a lot of software as a service products are free. We also have a free plan, so I think that's quite common in this time. So I will definitely try it. Give it a try, guys. Go on SparkToro.com, and yeah, just feel free to try that. Awesome talk, Rand. Was a pleasure to meet you. Definitely, we will stay in contact. Is there anything you want to say to the audience at the end of that podcast?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think that one of the things I have definitely learned in my startup career is that when you are constrained by things that you believe you're supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to build a big fancy office. I'm supposed to get venture capital funding. I'm supposed to whatever. I'm supposed to try and launch as fast as I can. I'm supposed to prioritize growth over profits. I'm supposed to hire a team. Try and critically evaluate whether all those things that you believe are true. Many times there's alternatives and there's creative solutions to these things that if you get rid of your preconceived notions, you can achieve some extraordinary things.
100% agree. Definitely, definitely. So guys, hope you enjoyed that episode. It would be awesome if you rate our podcast and follow Rand Fishkin on Twitter if you would like to. And yeah, would be awesome if you're in the next episode with us again. Have a good day, good night, or good morning. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me. Take care.